Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Hope is Kindled. Today we're stepping into one of the most hauntingly human stories ever written, a novel filled with candlelit corridors, crumbling mansions, and characters bound together by regret, longing, and, ultimately, love. It's Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, a story that has followed me through life like an old friend with hard-earned wisdom. We'll talk about Pip, a young boy whose kindness changes the course of his life and whose pride nearly ruins it. We'll visit the decaying world of Miss Havisham, the harsh justice of Mr. Jaggers, and the quiet warmth of Wemmick's homemade drawbridge. And we'll sit with some of the most honest, unflinching reflections ever put to paper. Reflections on suffering, cowardice, forgiveness, and what it means to grow into ourselves. I want this episode to feel like a conversation not just about a great book, but about the choices that shape us, the people who hurt us and heal us, and how even the worst pain can be transformed into something, quote, meaningful. There's some humor here, some heartbreak, and, as always, a few nods to the Muppets, because the great Gonzo is Charles Dickens in my book. Charles Dickens was born in 1812 in Portsmouth, England. He grew up with a love for storytelling and a front-row seat to hardship. When his father was sent to debtor's prison, young Charles, just 12, was pulled from school and sent to work in a blacking factory, pasting labels on bottles. The shame of this experience never left him. It left such a deep wound that he didn't even tell his wife or children about it for many years. That raw sense of lost childhood, humiliation, and class cruelty bleeds into the soul of Great Expectations, where the past is not just remembered, it is relived. Published in serialized form from 1860 to 1861, Great Expectations marked a shift for Dickens. It was darker, more introspective, and more deeply psychological than his earlier novels. He once called it his little piece, but it has become one of his most enduring masterpieces. We meet Pip in a cold, bleak graveyard. He's a small boy, an orphan, visiting the tombs of his parents when he's suddenly seized by a desperate convict named Magwitch. This opening scene is one of the most gripping in all of literature, a child's terror, a fog-shrouded marsh, and a promise that will echo throughout Pip's life. And yet, as he grows older and rises in station, Pip often forgets his roots. One of the most poignant lines in the novel comes from Pip's own self-reflection. In a word, I was too cowardly to do what I knew to be right, as I had been too cowardly to avoid doing what I knew to be wrong. This line stayed with me the first time I read it, and it's never quite let go. Pip isn't cruel. He's just weak, and sometimes weakness can be as harmful as any deliberate evil. His shame over Joe, the blacksmith who loved him like a son, is perhaps his worst crime, and it's born not of wickedness, but of fear. Miss Havisham's home, Satis house, is the physical embodiment of emotional paralysis. A mansion frozen in time, wedding feast left to rot, clocks stopped at the hour of betrayal. Anne Bancroft's performance in the 1998 film adaptation brought her to life with such icy devastation that it seared into my mind. Though, if I'm honest, the 2015 BBC adaptation may be the finest in capturing the full arc of Pip's inner journey. Pip believes that wealth and status will bring him happiness and make him worthy of Estella, the girl he's been groomed to love and lose. But all the riches in the world cannot shield him from heartbreak or remorse. Eventually, the truth emerges. His benefactor is not Miss Havisham, but Magwitch, the convict he helped as a boy. This revelation shatters Pip's illusions, but it also begins his redemption. He says, "Suffering has been stronger than all other teaching. I have been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape." That is the story of this novel. Not success, but transformation. Not triumph, but humility. And here's another favorite passage, especially important to anyone who has ever tried to hold it together too long. Heaven knows we need never be ashamed of our tears, for they are rain upon the blinding dust of earth, overlying our hard hearts. Sometimes, what we need isn't a victory, it's a cry. A breaking open of that crust we build around our hearts. Dickens doesn't let us off the hook either. He speaks directly to us when he writes, "Pause, you who read this, and think for a moment of the long chain of iron or gold, of thorns or flowers, that would never have bound you, but for the formation of the first link on one memorable day, This is literary deconstruction at its most humane. Pip's identity is not stable, fixed, or inevitable. It's forged link by link, each decision a part of the pattern. Each turn toward or away from love, a defining moment. What chains are we forming right now without realizing it? We need to talk about Wemmick. He is by far my favorite character in the novel. By day, he's the cold, logical clerk to the fierce Mr. Jaggers. But at home, he's built a little castle, complete with drawbridge, where he tends to his garden, fires a miniature cannon, and cherishes the company of his elderly father. This duality between the public role and the private sanctuary is something I think we all understand. It's funny, yes, but it's also tender. It reminds us that even in a brutal world, small kindnesses still bloom. And Jaggers, always washing his hands. What a symbol. He tries so hard to stay clean in a profession filled with moral compromise. But as we know, cleanliness doesn't always equal conscience. In Great Expectations, Dickens gives us a story of self-deception, selfishness, and, finally, self-awareness. Pip doesn't get the girl. He doesn't become the hero he imagined. But he becomes something better, a good man. And perhaps that's all we can really hope for ourselves, for the people we love, that in the end, we are better shaped by our brokenness, not ruined by it. Next time on Hope is Kindled, we sail into the Mediterranean with the Count of Monte Cristo, a story of betrayal, transformation, revenge, and redemption. We'll explore Edmond Dantes' incredible journey from prisoner to legend and what it really means to forgive. Until then, keep learning. Keep crying if you need to. And don't be afraid to revisit the chains you're forging. They might yet be flowers. Special thanks TMY Sons, whose curiosity and laughter light my way. To my friend and collaborator ChatGPT, who helps me organize my thoughts. To the Muppets who teach more about Dickens through singing vegetables than most adaptations do with stars. As always, I leave you with these words. Live the journey. For every destination is but a doorway to another. Good journey. I'm Jason, and this has been Hope is Kindled. 'Cause horror, not just the grotesque, but the banal cruelty of survival. And yet, I keep returning to the title of this podcast, Hope is Kindled.